Okay, everyone, I'm glad you joined us, and we'll get started. And the presentation that we're doing for you is Reclaim Your Life After Loss, how to start healing your grief to enjoy more peace, joy, and happiness. So yeah, I'm excited to have you here. Kudos to you for reaching out for grief support. I know oftentimes it can be difficult, so I'm very glad you are learning and educating yourself to help yourself with the healing process. And here is what we are going to do today. To give you the overview, we're going to break the myths about healing, super important information for you, and we're going to do some practices to help you begin your grief healing. So I'm going to have you grab some paper and pencil because I'm actually going to have you do this. It's almost like a workshop format. So we're going to define your healing vision, set your intention to heal, and this is also if you're farther along in your grief, you can work on your future vision, you can work on your next steps. So we're going to set your intention to heal, and then we're going to actually show you, or I'm going to show you how to do an action plan to get your concrete grief work going, and also show you how to create a healing sanctuary. So here's a picture of me and my family, just to give you a little background about us. This was at last Christmas. And what's interesting about this photo is, it's a year ago, around December 20th or so. My husband's stepdad had just passed away on December 4th. So here, I think we look happy. It looks like a cheery picture. But there is grief going on. And I should tell you that is because grief and joy can sit next to each other simultaneously. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. So here's a prime example of that. My husband on the left, Bill, we've been married 27 years. My son Jacob in the middle is 12. He actually looks much older than this already, even though this is a year old. And for me, this is also to tell you a little bit about my professional experience. I am certified through UW-Madison as a grief support specialist, and I have a life coaching certification. So I have professional credentials, but really what's more important is why you're learning from me today is because of my personal background, my personal experience. And you're learning from me today because, like you, people I loved died. I lost my mom and dad both suddenly. You can see my dad's picture on the left. I was only 4 years old. I was very young. And then my mom's picture on the right. I was 28 when she passed away. And when my mom passed away, my heart, my spirit, my life felt broken. It's taken me years to work out the answers. And one of the reasons I'm doing this webinar is because I don't want you to have to struggle as much as I have had to struggle. So depending where you are in your grief, you may wonder if your deep pain, sadness, tears will ever stop. You could have regret, anger, guilt, sleepless nights. And if you're farther along, you could be grappling with the questions of what now, why, if only, and maybe frightened about the future. But there is hope. I'm glad you're reaching out for help. You don't have to go alone. When I do, I just wanted to just give you a brief note with the webinar. If you could just listen to it with an open mind towards healing. A part of you already believes healing is possible because you're on this webinar seeking information. But your desire for healing has power because what you put your focus on expands and grows. And your intention to heal really creates that reality. Oh, and two, I did want to tell you a little more about why you are learning from me today. I said, I mentioned how my parents passed away, but really there's a little more to the story. when my mother passed away, I didn't want to go on. Like many of you, you probably have that feeling of not wanting to go on. So, but I did because I knew my parents would want more for me. And that's very common when you're fresh to grief to have those feelings of not wanting to go on simply because you're longing for the person you miss. Doesn't mean you're suicidal, likely. You know, if you ever have feelings like that, certainly reach out to a hotline immediately. So, but I held on. You know, I knew my parents would want more for me. But I learned how not to do grief. I learned to hide my emotions, stuff my feelings, numb myself. Again, I learned how not to grieve. I fell prey to unrealistic expectations about how grief should be done. And likely this is what has happened to you too. You've probably been given the message that grief should be done quietly, efficiently, on your own. And I was encouraged by well-meaning people who knew nothing about grief to move on, be strong. So I began to follow the cultural rules about how grief is supposed to be handled, and it simply was not working. My grief and love really were being minimized by these messages I was getting, and I was being shamed to stay in quiet pain. And I just wanted it to be okay, but I wasn't okay. And I knew there had to be a different approach to heal my grieving heart. I was on a quest to heal, and maybe some of you are as well. I wanted to live my life in honor of the people who've gone before me. So what I began to do, and granted this is a long quest, you know, my mother died over 22 years ago, and I've been doing this a long time. So I began to replace unhelpful information on how to grieve with my natural, authentic guidance from my heart and soul. And I also studied with skillful mentors to learn the most effective holistic healing methods so I can reconcile grief, transcend grief, live in the now, and have an appreciation of today. I taught myself how to face my grief directly. I opened my heart to the eternal powers of love, and I allowed myself to be supported by those who understood. I grieved fully to heal fully, to live fully. The death of the people changed me forever, and with this change came real pain. I became more open, loving, braver than before, and this brokenness was a catalyst to change, to become my whole authentic self. So it's very likely you are experiencing some of the same emotions, feelings. Granted, no one ever will know exactly how you feel, but I want to give you some tools today to help you for wherever you are in your grief. For me, I said yes to living again. I think many of you are doing the same, and healing is possible. That is my message for you today, and I would like to prove it with some of the tools we're going to go through, or you know, everyone's entitled to their own beliefs, so see what you think about what we have, but I think you'll find it very helpful. So healing your grief is possible, but how? With education, meaning reaching out for support, getting guidance from people who've been down the path before you. A vision, what does healing look like for you? Intention, setting your intention to heal. I want to heal. Concrete action, which I'll also talk about more exactly what that means, because that's often the missing piece for people that we don't know about. And of course, support. So again, I'm glad you're here to get this information. And one of my favorite topics to talk about, which we're going to talk about first, which is very important, is breaking the myths about grief. So this is, some of the more important information, or really I think some of the most important information, because I had fell prey to it myself. So the first one I wanted to talk about, neat logical stages do not exist. And I'm sure you're quite familiar with the 5 stages of grief. This is the model set forth by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross from her 1969 book on death and dying. So this model has been around almost for 50 years, and it's the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. I'm sure you've heard them, but most likely what you haven't heard is when she developed this model, she was studying people who were dying. These 5 stages were for people, again, who were dying. They weren't meant for mourners like you, but over time, these stages got applied to the grievers. That was not the intent of the author. But I think for Western society, it was so easy for us to grab onto these 5 neat linear stages. Yay, I'll follow this and I'll get better. But no, there aren't any logical stages. There isn't a linear line. And we misconstrue this information. So do not try to fit your mourning experience into neat logical stages. If you ever have a therapist, counselor, friend, whatever, who recommends that, run. That's just not the correct information for you. And a lot of people don't know that because it's such mainstream information, but many grief professionals do. So in recovering from grief, it's not a rigid framework to be followed. It's one of the least predictable, logical things you'll ever go through. It's not smooth, easy, and you probably know that already, but I just wanted to make that point. You do not follow the 5 stages. They are not meant for you to follow. They were meant for people who were dying, unfortunately. Secondly, no right way to grieve. Oftentimes, people who visit with me will be like, am I doing this right? There is no right way or wrong way. And I think that comes because we hear about these 5 stages of grief. Your grief is unique to you based on the relationship you had with your loved one, based on the circumstances of death. So there's no right way. The right way is your way. And if you get information from people or guidance from people that doesn't make you feel good, most likely it's incorrect. It's not helpful because it's not making you feel good. Next, no timeline to follow. Perhaps you could be grieving for the rest of your life. We don't know. I like to think healing is possible. Healing does occur. I've healed from the loss of my parents, but that doesn't mean there can still not be some grief involved. But for you, no timeline to follow. You might hear people ask, isn't it time for you to let go? Shouldn't you be over it by now? I don't even like saying those phrases. That's why I paused. These things people say to you, it's because they don't know any better. We haven't been taught in Western society how to mourn and grieve. Our ancestors 100 years before us, yes, they knew what to do because it was different then. People died younger. We had funerals in the home, there was rituals, there was mourning periods. Now people's lives are extended so much longer. We have very healthy births. Children don't die in births. Our communities are spread out, so we don't have that sense of togetherness. We don't learn how to mourn. So when people do give you things that hurt, when they say, it's simply because our culture hasn't taught us how to grieve. So you can forgive them if you like. You can educate them if you like, if you're up to the task, or you can simply excuse yourself from the conversation. When you're new to grief, it's often easier just to excuse yourself because you might not be up for that task yet. So for grief, no shortcuts, no quick fixes, no matter what anyone tells you. You cannot predict how you'll feel in the future. There's no set timetables. No matter how much time has passed, you can feel however you want to. Unfortunately, the people who think there is a timeline to grief are really the people who have not lost a loved one. They might think you'll get back to normal in a few weeks or a few months. They, of course, don't understand because they haven't gone through it. They have discomfort and they don't feel comfortable with grief, so they kind of pressure you to move on. Or it can just be that they don't know how to help. But again, you're healing does not have a timeline. And then also others incorrectly expect you to be the same. And you might have initially even thought that too, but now you know we don't get back to the same. Our grief, our loss has changed us. And it's just like life events that happen. It could be like getting married, having children, getting divorced, switching jobs. Things happen. We're not the same. So it's just the same when a death occurs. So you won't be the person you were before, but how could you be? You've expanded your capacity to grow and love through this experience. And I even heard Elizabeth Smart on a morning show recently talking about the girl who was abducted in Wisconsin, and they just found, me being from Wisconsin, that's why I was following it a little. And the advice she had given on the morning show, and she was very, very careful with the words she was using. She said the girl would not be the same, but not to let the grief define her. So it's not correct for others to want you to be back the way you were. Things are different. And lastly, closure, it really doesn't exist. And when I really understood this concept, that really helped me with my grieving, because I incorrectly was taught that we should cut ties and move on. And how painful of a thought is that, to move on from the people you love, to not think about them, to cut ties. So a big part of my work that I do is continuing bonds. That's how we heal. Rather than closure, I often encourage people to think of new ways to continue that bond, move forward with life, and still hold your loved one forever in your heart. How can you keep their memory alive? How do you keep them close to you? And there's a whole grief theory called continuing bonds. And in this theory, they have proved continuing the bond provides solace to the person who is bereaved. So that is with continuing bond, that's talking about your person, looking at pictures, sharing memories. It's almost like your honor and privilege to keep that person alive, because we want to continue that bond. Yes, they are not here physically, but we can continue that bond into the spiritual realm, or however you would like to, that makes you feel good. And this also is based on the 4 tasks of mourning. And those are from William Worden, another grief model, different than the 5 stages of grief, just how the continuing bonds is another model. And I use his model in my work because I find it very helpful. And this is what he says about the 4 tasks. Accept the reality of loss, process the pain of grief, adjust to the world without the deceased, but most importantly, to find an enduring connection with the deceased in the midst of embarking on a new life. So if you can find that enduring connection by yourself or with support or with your family, that does make a big difference in your grief healing. So let's continue on. I'd like you to grab pen and paper, because now we're going to have you do a little work. I see I see someone there has their pen and paper out, so very good. So just have some quiet space, avoid distractions, and we're going to have you think about some reflective questions to help you. Well, first of all, healing grief, to me, it means living your life fully. What's your why? Why do you want to heal your grief? And here are some ideas for you. So I want you to reflect on that question. So perhaps it's in honor of the person you love who died. That was my why, because I thought, well, my mom has worked too hard not for me to go on and have a good life. Perhaps it's for your family and children. You have grandchildren, other kids, or simply to feel happiness, joy, and peace more than you felt before, or to attain a similar level you've had in the past, to enjoy health and vitality, because we know grief takes a lot out of us physically, exhaustion, sleepless nights, physical pains. It might be to fulfill your purpose and help others or honor the legacy of your beloved. So, yeah, what is your why? Why do you want to get better? And the first question you really have to ask yourself is, do I want to get better? If you don't, that makes it so much tougher to heal. And I would encourage you, if you're in that spot, to reach out to a therapist, counselor, reach out to me. I help people healing with grief. So yeah, think about what is your why. So now we're going to define healing. This is the first step. And there really aren't steps, but I'm just calling it steps to make it easier for our presentation. Define healing, your vision. So that is your unique roadmap to a new way of being. So for defining healing, we would like to think about, what does healing feel and look like to you? What adjectives describe healing? And I want you to write it out, and then you can share it. You don't have to share it with us now, but you can share it with someone in your family, or you can put it in the chat if you want. But let me give you some better instructions, what I mean about defining healing. So we want to choose a definition of healing that works for you based on wherever you are in your grief journey right now. You could be fresh, you could be years out. Your definition might be like, what do I want in the future? I want a clearer, more clarity, better future. Or your definition can be like, I just want a day where I don't cry. I want a day where I don't have any grief bursts. And this definition is going to change, and it's fluid, because in 3 months you're going to feel different how than you do now. In a year you're going to feel different than how you do now. So what does healing feel like? What does it look like? What adjectives would describe it for you? More joy, happiness. So I'm going to give you some definitions to kind of get you started of what I mean. And this is kind of going to be your vision of what you want to happen. It's kind of like setting the goal, really. So some questions for you to consider. Again, what's our personal definition of healing? But what might integrating loss in your life look like? How do you keep that continuing bond of the person alive? What meaning can you give to the mourning process? What purpose has come out of your experience? So here is my definition of healing, and I have a couple other examples for you. And mine is to think of my deceased loved ones with happiness and not sadness, to appreciate the moments I had with them rather than disparage the time I did not, and to live my life in a way that honors their life with joy, meaning, and purpose, and to know their spirits are always with me. That's my definition. I'm farther out in the grief healing process and feel that my grief is healed. So my definition is going to be a little different. Here's a definition from a mom who lost her son about 2 years ago when she wrote this. And she lost her adult son to suicide. Her definition is peace deep in my heart and soul, connection to my son in everything, engagement with the people I love, purposefulness in my life choices, and contentment with being here. So yeah, you'll really probably have to reflect on what your definition of healing is. So I just wanted to give you some ideas, but kind of jot down what comes to you right now, because that's usually the most appropriate definition, what's coming into your mind now. And another lady who lost her son, this is her definition of healing. And she lost her teenage son, a constant holding dear to my heart, all those things I love about him and our time together. Healing is living my new chapter within, willingness to feel my pain and a willingness to let it go as much as I can in my own time. Healing is also discovering the joy that is surely waiting for me in my life as I move forward one step at a time. And lastly, I'll give you one more person's. And this lady, I think, also lost a child as well. She says, I say yes to joy. I say yes to loving myself and others. I say yes to gratitude for what I have in my life. I say yes to self care. I say yes to finding my purpose. I say yes to finding my truth and staying true to myself. I say yes to telling my story. I say yes to healing. And clients I work with sometimes resist the idea of healing because they believe it means forgetting their loved one, but nothing can be farther from the truth. You can never forget the person who died. It's impossible. You can, however, and this is what I focus on in my work, is let the pain go gradually as you heal, but hold on to the deep love. You can continue to love the deceased while you're living, and you'll love that person until you die. So my message is, you can hold on to the love grows, but gradually that pain will soften and love will fill those spaces where the pain used to be. And then I wanted to share my favorite quote with you, or one of my favorites, about healing. And this is from the book You Don't Have to Suffer, a handbook for moving beyond life's crises. The author is Judy Tattlebaum. It's an awesome book. I'd highly recommend it. And this is what she says if you feel a little resistant to healing. It seems to me that the best testimonial we can give to our dead loved ones is how well we recover and live our lives after a loss, not how much we grieve. Our misconception is imagining that our suffering or how intensely or how long we grieve is a measure of how much we loved. In truth, none of us would want another's grief as a testimonial of their love for us. So I believe the best testament you can give to your loved one is to heal, to go on and live a happy life, the best to your ability, in their honor. So that is our first item for you to do. Define your vision of healing. So again, jot down what had come to you, and then you can go back and revisit it. Next, we're going to set the intention to heal. And that's where we're just going to help you achieve your definition of healing or your future plans. It's really your choice on how you'll handle sorrow and how it'll affect the rest of your life. And we want you to set the intention to guide your experience to positively influence your path to restoration. So what is an example of an intention? An intention to heal. Well, what comes to your mind when you think about an intention to heal? Like, what would you like to say? For me, one example I can give you is, I am healing. I am healing. I am healing. What can be a better intention than that? Because that's what you want to do. So you think to yourself, how do you feel? What do I want to do? Another can be, I am a victor over grief. I am rebuilding and reclaiming my life. I triumph over sorrow, heal completely, and live on and honor the people I love. So think about, what intention would you like to set right now to aid your healing? I am healing. I'm a victor over grief. I'm in the process of healing. So a few tips to help your intention. What I'd like you to do is state aloud your committed intention. So you can say it to yourself right now if you want. You can look in the mirror, deep into your eyes, and just say, I am healing. I am healing. Tell yourself that every morning when you get up, when you look in the mirror. I am enough. I love you. It's kind of that mirror work that you hear from Louise Hay, but we're doing it a little differently. I am healing. I am healing. Declared with conviction and believed wholeheartedly, this really can be a life-defining moment for you when you really, truly make that intention to heal. Also, I'd like you to identify at least one or two supportive people in your life. One will work. Just tell them your commitment that you want to heal. I am healing. And also, with these people, I would like you to declare that to the person you love who died. to your child, to your partner, to whoever it is. I am healing in your honor. I am healing, or whatever your intention is. Share it with them. Say it out loud to their picture. Write it in a note. However you want to do it. Say it right before you go to bed. But declare it to that person. And that's another way of keeping that continuing bond of love alive. And say it throughout the day, again and again. And a way to do this is use a prompt to remember. And the prompt could be easy, like when you're getting dressed in the morning, I am healing. Taking a drink of water, I am healing. Lighting a candle every day, if you're at home, evening, I am healing. So whatever your intention is, say it repeatedly, and then use those prompts to help you remember it. So really what we're trying to get you to do, I'm trying to get you to do, is to take an active approach rather than a passive approach to your healing. See how these actions were taken? So that is the background of what we're doing. So next we have a grief healing plan, action. So what do I mean about that? Like, how can you have a plan to heal grief? That really doesn't make sense when I'm saying it's unique to you, blah, blah, blah. So, but you can take action to heal. And let me explain. Grief, the definition, it's our internal response to loss. It's how we process those feelings. Grief is an authentic reaction to loving. If you had not loved so deeply, you would not be grieving so deeply. Only a person who's incapable of love is incapable of grief. So grief is the internal thoughts and feelings you experience. In contrast, mourning is our outward response to loss. Mourning means our grief gone public. So we identify the grief in ourselves, and our job is to push it up and out of us, to release the grief. And that's how we heal. So oftentimes you'll hear this activity to release the grief called grief work. And this is concrete, doable action that's really rooted in mourning. We identify the grief in us and then we push it up and out. And how do we push it up and out? Like, what activities can we do? Well, there's a variety of things you can do. And your task is to discover those activities. It can be walking, it can be journaling, it can be lighting a candle every day saying, I am healing. It can be writing letters to your deceased loved ones. It can be talking to your deceased loved one's picture. It can be whatever you want to do to release your grief. I'm going to give you another method, the healing sanctuary, that you can do that as well. And grief, really expresses itself in surprising ways. Like, we can physically get sick, we're drained, we have grief bursts or we cry. And what happens is we're often taught to repress, deny, pretend it away, or we'll push it away with unhealthy behaviors like being a workaholic, Netflix, wine, sleeping pills, whatever. We busy ourselves so we don't feel the emotions. So the natural way to grieve is rooted in the mourning. So it's where we identify it in us and we push it out. So this requires a lot of hard work, action after action. So it's the daily steps we take to push grief up and out. And like I said, it's hard work. We have to befriend our grief, honor our loss, attend to our wounds. There's so many different things to do, but I hope it gives you hope that this really is possible. Mourning is hard work. We do this grief work. We take an active approach to help us heal. And the other thing I want to mention too is time, of course, does not heal grief alone. It's what you do with that time. It's the vision, it's the intention, it's the action. So it's a lot of the information I'm giving you today. So I feel like I'm kind of loading you up with a lot of grief education. So now it's the work to go through the process. But this is a very important foundation for you to have so you can go through this grief work, so you have the education to do it. And I must say, when I was new to grief, I didn't know any of this. I didn't do any of this. So I was stuck in grief much, much longer than I needed to be. I wasted years of my life. I probably didn't need to. I followed the example of how my mother grieved, who lost my father, and also the example of how my mother-in-law grieved, who lost her husband. She had 5 little kids. They just silently sat in their grief. They didn't know what to do. They let it ascend on them passively because they didn't know any better at the time. So I think that's a part of the reason for my work, because unfortunately I've seen it firsthand. So yeah, I wanted to invite you for an invitation for healing, to work with me if you'd like, if you would like to do the hard work of grieving. So I'm proposing a 3-week grief support group where we would meet for the next 3 Tuesday nights after this. And we're going to firsthand, I'll show you how to do the concrete, doable action of grieving. You're going to have the support of people to talk to while you're in the process of learning how to push your grief up and out through mourning. You're going to learn how to give yourself permission to grieve. And plus, you're going to hear others' experiences, which normalizes the grief experience for you. So we're really going to lay the educational foundation with you. And I'm also going to share my 7 essential grief healing practices. And this is in my upcoming book, The Sudden Loss Survival Guide, which I can accredit Deborah, who's on the call, to all her awesome help in getting that book ready for publication. And in fact, Deborah doesn't know this yet, but we have a agent who is selling the book for us. So I will fill her in a little more about that. So in our grief support group, we're going to work on your intention and vision, and also implement a healing sanctuary in your own home to honor and support grief. And if you want more information about that, just go to healinggrief101.com. So it's a real easy URL. It's actually healgrief101.com. And this program is for you if you're dealing with the loss of a spouse, a child, a partner, or really a beloved companion. And I also should mention it's for you if you believe it's possible to begin to mend your broken heart, but you don't know where to begin. You're ready to heal, but you need help, you need support, and you may feel stuck in grief and need a little help to get your vision going for the future. So yeah, if you're interested in that, you can go to Heal Grief 101, and I'll give you a little more info. Oh, and here I tell you a little more who it's for, how it'll benefit you, what you'll take away, the essential healing practices and support for your path to healing. Starts January 22nd, 3 consecutive Tuesdays. The best part, it's only $97. So make it super, super affordable so you can get some grief help. healgrief101.com. Yeah, if you go to that page, you can sign up there. Yeah, only $97, so total bargain, but I want to get the help out to people who need it, for sure. People who are ready to heal their grief. Oh, and I do have to put a little plug in for myself. The results that I've helped people get, Chelsea's helped me more than any professional I've worked with. I got more working with Chelsea in 1 hour than working with my counselor in 1 year. And another person said, I'm able to experience true joy, and I'm deeply and profoundly grateful. I have been led to the tools, which we're teaching you here today, the tools for continued healing and growth, and I know it's truly possible to thrive again. And the reason that I get good results for clients is because I specialize in grief. Lots of therapists and counselors you go to have broad knowledge. They don't specialize in grief. And a lot of people turn away from it because it's a difficult subject. A lot of people don't want to work with it. So if you are reaching out for a therapist or counselor, just make sure they specialize in grief, because then you can get the best help. And if you can't find anyone in your area, certainly feel free to reach out to me. I work via phone or like this, via Zoom. So I'm happy to help you if you need assistance. Oh, and I should ask, add one more thing for the $97 3-week class. If you sign up today, you get a bonus call with me where I work with you privately, one-on-one. We look at your progress, what's holding you back, and your plan for the future. So that alone is worth more than the $97. So yeah, check that out if you're interested, healgrief101.com. Okay, and then let's keep going. The next tool I'd like to share with you, and it looks like we're right on time here, is to create a healing sanctuary. And this is very important because we talked about doing your active mourning, your active grief work, pushing the grief up and out of you, releasing it. But how do we do that? That can be the challenge. That can be where you need support. So I want to explain how to create a healing sanctuary in your own home so you can go in there and do your grief work. And in my book that's coming out, The Sudden Loss Survival Guide, we explain this in the beginning of the book, how to create your healing sanctuary, because in the book we offer a lot of tools that you can then use in the sanctuary to heal your grief. So, grief demands to be felt in order to be released. So to get beyond grief, you must go through it, not around it. Your sole purpose for feelings is to be felt. That's all they want to do. Your emotions want to be in motion. So we need a place to honor our grief and allow our feelings, a place of quiet, a place where you can just be, cry, reflect, and experience your emotions. So it's very simple. First, let's just find a place in your home. It can be a couch in your den, a soft chair by a sunny window, a cheery patio, a nook in your garden. For men, it can be like your workshop, a man cave, or for ladies, it could be a craft or sewing room. Or if you prefer getting outside, it could be a place in nature, sit in your garden, going for a short walk, bike ride, taking a canoe. And typically for clients, I usually recommend a place in their house, like perhaps their bedroom. I have a client now who's using the desk that her partner used to sit at because that brings her a lot of comfort. So we're going to develop this place in your house where you can go to every day for 10 or 15 minutes. It should be a place with no phones, no interruptions, or family members. It's just your place to seek peace and calm and renewal. And you can even give this place a special name, like for example, if you lost a person named Colin, it could be Colin's Cubby, Sarah's Loft, Noelle's Nook. If that idea brings pain to you, certainly use it. It's only if it brings relief to you or makes you feel better. Yeah, so we just want a name that might bring some joy to you, but if it doesn't, that's okay. So the sanctuary in your home, this is going to be an inviting place for your mind, body, and soul, where you're going to increase it's going to be a place for all your 5 senses to make you feel better, what you feel, you smell, you see. So you can consider flowers, soft music, fragrance. You could add a fountain, plants, crystals, anything to soothe your aching heart and body. You could put family pictures in there, meaningful mementos, an item that's symbolic with the relationship of your loved one. So kind of on your piece of paper or in your mind, think, well, where can I have my healing sanctuary in my house? What would I like to put in it? What would make me feel better? Again, pictures, plants, quotes, anything to calm your heart, lift your spirit. Maybe a favorite mantra of the person you miss. So you can put that in your healing area. And we're calling this your healing sanctuary, your sacred space. And for me, my healing space is in my office behind closed doors. I have pictures of my loved ones. I have a photograph of my mom, well, a drawing that my mom made when she was 15. I have ashes from my brother-in-law who passed away. And typically for me, I'll light a candle or I'll use essential oils. So it's just items that bring you joy rather than sadness. And maybe initially reminders of your person who passed away might bring you sadness. So just put the things that bring in joy for you now, and that could change as time goes on. So what do we do in our healing sanctuary? And this typically is the first thing I recommend to clients, is to start this healing sanctuary. So you're just going to retreat to it for 10 or 15 minutes a day. It's a safe haven, your place away from the world after a long work day, a sleepless night, a burst of tears. And here you're going to continue to release your grief and sorrow and be alone with your thoughts. So you're going to do that hard work of mourning where you're pushing the grief up and out of you. This is your designated time. And this is how we heal, by pushing this grief up and out of us. In this space, you don't have to edit or judge your feelings. You can let your guard down to let these emotions surface, the emotions that maybe you've been hiding, burying, and you're going to allow your grief to flow through you. And it could even be the painful aspects that you normally want to avoid. And here we're entering our healing sanctuary only for a short time, because it can be more bearable to feel your grief in small doses. Here you can safely think about the person you love, what he means to you, what she still means to you, how you feel about their physical absence. So on your piece of paper, also think about, or write down, or in your mind, think, well, what will I do in my healing sanctuary? What do I want to think about? What things need to be addressed? You might want to think about changes in income, living arrangements, family interactions, all the things that naturally happen as part of grief. And during your time in your safe haven, it's kind of like the grief will come up and out of you. You're safely giving yourself permission to grieve. So when you go in your healing sanctuary, yes, give yourself permission to grieve. Give yourself permission to do what you need to do. You're away from everyone. Give yourself permission to do what your heart naturally wants to do, not what your family wants you to do, not what society wants you to do, what you need to do to heal. And at first that might feel foreign, but over time, it'll get much easier. So next, I really want to give you some activities of what you can do in your healing sanctuary. So, and you can add whatever you would like to this list. So this is just to give you some ideas of how you push this grief up and out of you and release the grief. And notice I keep repeating that concept, but that really is the key to help you heal. So you could light a candle, and then you can say your intention. I am healing, I am healing, I am healing. You can pray, meditate, cry, read, listen to music you like, or music of your loved one. You can use movement through dance or song. Imagine your loved one, talk to your loved one, write a letter to your loved one, ask for his or her forgiveness, ask for forgiveness if there's something you need to be forgiven for. Speak your truth, express your love, release unsaid messages, and you can even write in a dedicated grief healing journal. And that's one of the things I recommend to clients too, is to do a grief healing journal. And for a grief healing journal, that's just a way of expressing your feelings, getting that grief up and out, journaling every day. You can write your intention, I am healing. You can write your vision in your journal. Any grief healing exercises you do, which will be coming in my book, you can put in your journal. So that is a great way to help with the healing process. And even if you're not a writer, give it a try, see what you think. It's just a great way to clear your head especially in the morning, kind of do those morning pages, get it out. But these are all activities that you can do in your healing sanctuary. So your task is to think about, where can my healing sanctuary be? When could I go in it? It's ideal to have the same time every day or close to the same time, because it's just a cue for your body to be like, okay, I'm in a safe place. I can do what I need to do. I can release my grief. And then you're going to think about too, what can I do in my healing sanctuary? Read, rest, meditate, all those activities I gave you. And two, if you're working with a support person or in the group that I offered you, we go over activities that you can do in your healing sanctuary. And oftentimes it's writing to the person you miss, especially if there's unsaid messages, because that helps in the healing journey. So yeah, make it a ritual to join your sanctuary every day. And one thing you can do to kind of make it a ritual, I'll give you one of our grief healing practices that I recommend to clients. It's very easy. It's just comforting your hurting heart. When you begin your time in your healing sanctuary, which again is your peaceful, sacred space where you go every day to gently grieve, you can start your time by saying your mantra or your healing intention. I am healing. I can and will go on. I can and will go on. And really say that with intention. And hold this message in your mind and feel the power to believe it. And just kind of imagine that protective golden shield around your heart, allowing you to open to this mantra, to feel it flow through your heart. This wound in your heart lets love go in and out both ways, and this is where the light enters to help in the darkness. So really, when you go into this space, kind of set yourself up right with that healing intention. I am healing. I can and will go on. Just let those loving words seep into into your body. You can even put those words in your grief healing journal as well. So yeah, like I said, this is typically the first thing I have clients do, is do the healing sanctuary.
Hi,
Because
sweetheart.
it's a
How you
way
doing?
to do your grief healing work. So really, I'd like to conclude with, nothing in life prepares
You
you
enjoyed it.
for
I'm just going to
the
go up
person
and
you care about.
bowl of,
You hurt so much because
bowl
you
of
love
the
so
soup.
much. When my mother had died, I'd given little possibility to the idea of death.
First of all, how was yours?
With this new experience of her dying, I could give in, give it everything I got, whatever. And for a while, I gave in because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to ask for help.
Yeah.
I'd gone to a counselor. It wasn't helpful simply because the person didn't do grief support. I didn't know any better at the time. So for you, the reason I'm sharing this information is so you have the right guidance and support. You now have some of the information I wish I would have had to set the foundation for my healing.
Yeah.
The practices I gave you are tangible and concrete, and they will really help you move through healing. You can put into action what you've learned, and I hope you do. And as you continue to do these grief healing practices, you'll get more moments of joy. And they'll stretch out longer. Your joy will become more frequent and longer. And your outside world will change because you've changed.
Say, when is
Miraculous shifts in your perception will occur. And notice any resistance to healing that you have. If there's information I said that makes you uncomfortable, that might be the information that you have to explore. And without taking regular action to release and mourn your grief, you can become consumed by sorrow rather than heal as you're meant to. And most importantly, remember, when you're healing, we're not forgetting about the person we love. Again, like I said, it's impossible. Your love grows stronger, deeper, and closer as you heal. Memories and love simply remain. Oh, and just one more time, if you feel that you need help with your grief support, I have the Reclaim Your Life Grief Support Program, and you can learn more at healgrief101.com, healgrief101.com. It's only 97 bucks, so super cheap. And here we're just going to carry out your plan for healing grief with concrete, doable action, support, and accountability, just to get you on your foundation to healing. It's only 3 classes, but I think you'll get a lot out of it, especially with other participants in it, because sometimes we feel alone. So this helps us normalize the grief experience to hear firsthand how other people are feeling. And of course, a bonus, if you sign up, you get a free 30-minute session with me. So that is worth the cost of the program alone. So healgrief101.com. Oh, yeah, and I was going to see if you had any questions. So it's kind of difficult because we have you on mute. So you certainly could type them in the chat if you like. Yeah, so I can look at the chat. So if you have the chat, certainly go ahead. And I'm going to turn this off to see if there are any questions. When I recognize some people's names are here. So yay, I'm glad you attended. Yeah, so my message to you is healing is possible. It's very, very hard work. You do it with concrete, doable action. You do it with knowledge and support of the grief healing process. Let me see if there's anything in chat. Oh yeah, and Deborah wrote, healing equals living with recognition in the brilliance and the unique lessons only my loved one could teach me. Yeah, very nice, Deborah. Yeah, so if you have any questions, certainly put it in the chat. If you would like to reach out for help, you can reach out to me at any time. Email me, info@chelseahanson.com. Or if you feel you want to try grief support, go to the link I gave you, griefhealing101.com, and you can see how you like grief group support, which is just like what we do here. Everyone will be able to talk, but it's like the holiday that game. Yeah, the Hollywood Squares. Yeah, so thanks again. And it was my pleasure sharing this information with you. Again, it was information I wish I would have had when I lost my parents. And you can make your journey through grief much, much better with the proper education and support. So yeah, I don't see any more questions in the chat. Yeah, thank you for listening. I appreciate your thank yous. Yeah, I'll let you go. And yeah, feel free to email me. And I'm glad I see the one lady, Simon, I don't know how to pronounce your name, taking notes, so good for you. Again, we had the setting the intention to heal, defining what healing looks like for you, going into your healing sanctuary to do the hard work of mourning. So those really are the steps I want you to know because they are super important. So yeah, I'll let everyone go, but remember, vision, intention, action. It's the steps we take to help us heal, and healing is possible. So yeah, thanks everyone. It was my pleasure talking with you tonight, and I'm so glad you tuned in your busy life. So bye everyone.
I got 3 o'clock appointment with my trainer, and then I'll go to jujitsu, and then I'll come over to the house and